It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Well, folks, by now we've read all these articles being published out of the Northwest, the publisher, the Oregonian Press. Articles concerning the CEO of Pacific Office Automation. Folks, the latest article was titled this: Pacific Office Automation CEO on indefinite leave after revelations of sex abuse conviction, assault allegations. When I read that headline, immediately I thought this: when were the revelations first determined? And I'm not the only one that thought that. I'm sure there's attorneys all over the country that are thinking that. Let me read the latest headline again. Pacific Office Automation CEO on indefinite leave after revelations of sex abuse conviction, assault allegations. My question: when were the revelations first determined? Because that's important to this story, and this is an important story for our industry. Pacific Office Automation's revenues of nearly $500 million makes Pacific Office Automation the largest dealer in the United States. At their last annual meeting, Konica Minolta, an executive from Konica Minolta, a senior executive, stood on stage and told the audience that Pacific Office Automation was their largest dealer in the world. That makes this an important story for not only Konica Minolta, for all of the other suppliers to Pacific Office Automation. It makes it an important story because I believe there will be more implications coming from this story. This will impact our industry, whether our industry's actors want to face the realities or not. Folks, we've read these articles. They seem like they're coming out every day now. It's disturbing at many levels. I do want to say something. The Oregonian posted or published a correction to an article, and I think the correction they published is important to today's story. And they wanted to make it clear that the payoff that took place in 2022 was not by Pacific Office Automation. The payoff was made by the CEO of Pacific Office Automation. And of course, when I read this clarification, the first thing I thought of, was that question I just asked you all. When were the revelations first determined? But folks, it was that July surprise article was the first time I became aware of what was going on, the allegations around the CEO of Pacific Office Automation. And it was an article regarding a current lawsuit that the CEO of Pacific Office Automation is in. And the article was talking about how the CEO of Pacific Office Automation, a gentleman named Doug Patassi, was not mentioned in the lawsuit. And how unprecedented that was. Because the victims' names are always withheld. But, ladies and gentlemen, the abusers' names are never withheld. But in this case, Doug's name was in fact withheld. The reporter figured out who he was, and hence the article was written. And since then, we've seen 3 or 4 other articles. Every one of these articles is a little bit more disturbing. Ladies and gentlemen, these latest accusations bring total number of accusers to 7, including his conviction of the activities with the 2 schoolboys. This story isn't about a 1987 conviction where the CEO, Pacific Office Automation, who at that time was not anywhere near Pacific Office Automation, he was actually a teacher, but he received 5 years probation for a conviction involving activities with 2 minor victims. In 2022, working at Pacific Office Automation at this time as its CEO, paid 3 employees. Paid them off. That was in 2022. And that payoff had to do with activities that were going on as far back as 2014. 10 years. In 2024, today, a current case, and that's the case that we all read about in early July. 2 additional employees suing the CEO of Pacific Office Automation. So again, it's not about just the 2 employees that are currently suing him. It's not about the 3 employees that were paid off. It's not about the 2 minor victims while he was a teacher. It's about 7 accusers. When does benefit of doubt become benefiting through ignoring? When does benefit of doubt become benefiting through ignoring? And I'm asking this question of all of my friends in our industry. Because whether it's this story or another story, it seems like the industry wants to give benefit of the doubt. They don't know when to end the tenure of benefit of the doubt. And when you don't know when to end the tenure of benefit of the doubt, it turns into benefiting through ignoring. There's a quote out there by Swami. It goes like this: comfort is no test of truth. Truth is often far from being comfortable. So let me ask all of my friends in the industry this question again. When does benefit of doubt become benefiting through ignoring? As I researched this story and I dug into it a little bit, as I talked to some folks in the industry, I did some math, ladies and gentlemen. I want to make it clear. In 1987, Doug was 26 years old when he was a teacher, convicted based on the activities with 2 minor students. He was 26 years old. He wasn't a teenager. In fact, he was 7 years past being a teenager. But I have to ask, who else knew and when? OEM software partners. What were board members' understandings of all of this? Ladies and gentlemen, in 2022, 3 employee victims were paid off. We recently read the story about one of those payoffs. It was a pretty interesting story. It was something you would think you're going to see as a movie of the week. It was disturbing at so many levels. But when was the revelation really determined? I want to ask you all a question. Does anybody believe that the CEO, who is now on, well, an undetermined leave of absence, if you will, would have even got hired had Megan's Law been in effect in 1987? I think we should all think about that. And think about what the impacts of that Megan's Law is. And folks that committed crimes against juveniles, if you will, minors, if you will, prior to 1996, didn't get near the scrutiny as those that did it after. Joined the company as a sales manager in 1989 while on probation for sexually abusing 2 teenage boys at Grisham High School where he worked. Had Megan's Law been in effect in 1989, would he in fact today be the CEO of Pacific Office Automation? I predict an increase in suit activities now that the CEO has taken indefinite leave. Now that the attempts at controlling the awareness have failed, and that's what I believe all of this was. I believe they were attempts at controlling the awareness, and it's failed. And now the world knows. And the Oregonian press seems to be publishing articles regarding this every other week. How many more articles are we going to see? The POA marketplace will respond. However, I don't believe the benefit of doubt will be widely implemented anymore. I predict a fierce judgment and backlash. Will Portland reconsider POA sponsorships? Will NASCAR reconsider? Ladies and gentlemen, it holds marketing deals with Oregon's biggest teams, the Portland Trailblazers, Timbers, the Thorns. It sponsors Major League Baseball teams in Seattle and Phoenix and NFL franchises in San Francisco and Los Angeles. The company has sponsorship deals with Linfield University, Oregon State, Washington State, San Jose State, and other college sports programs. Last month, NASCAR announced it will bring the Pacific Office Automation 147 race back to Portland for the 4th year. Are these sports franchises going to reconsider? And the reason I say that, ladies and gentlemen, is because they have in the past pretty recently. Portland Timbers ends sponsorship with Bella, as CEO faces sexual harassment allegations. The CEO of Bella faces sexual harassments, and the Portland Timbers end the sponsorship. Of course, Bella decides to sue the Portland Timbers. But I got to ask a question. Will POA get a different outcome? When does benefit of doubt become benefiting through ignoring? Ladies and gentlemen, there has to be a tenure on benefit of doubt. And that tenure has to be based on common sense and reality. And I believe that this story and other stories in our industry, well, the tenure of benefit of doubt has ended. And everybody watching me knows this: status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck there, and I'll see you all tomorrow.